What's going on, guys? I'm Jody. This is Inspire Woodcraft. Today I have 3 tools to go over. These are like the smaller sibling of a speed square. I have the Woodpeckers DelVe squares, a very compact, very feature-rich, pretty popular option from Woodpeckers. I have a version from Drillpro, which I got from banggood.com, and I have the Milwaukee 4.5-inch trim square, which is a tool that I've been asked very many times about what my thoughts were on it, and I didn't have one until now, so I am excited to have this in the mix. Now, this video is not a which one I think you should buy with your hard-earned money. It's merely getting them in the same place and showing you the fit and the functions of these tools so that you can actually make a decision for yourself had you been in the market for a tool like this. So many times we see the higher end tools with their higher end price tags, and then we see these tools and we never really know if we're getting the same thing or if we're compromising somehow. So again, this just gives us an opportunity to actually go through these things and see what the differences really are. Now, because this isn't an unbiased video, it really doesn't matter if I paid for these or if they were sent out, but it does get brought up. Woodpeckers sent us out this DelVe square specifically for these comparison videos. Banggood.com sent us the Drillpro specifically for these comparison videos. And the Milwaukee 4.5-inch trim square, I actually bought this myself at a Home Depot. So if you are interested and you have a Home Depot local to you, you might be able to find it there as well. Now, I will leave links to all of these things in the description, just like always, so that you can find the direct products that I am actually talking about. You can see the prices, the reviews, the shipping, the lead time, stuff like that, if you want to know more information. I also don't need these tools in my shop because I don't really find myself using this type of tool very often. I do find myself in certain situations sometimes where I do wish that I had one on hand, but it's so rare that I usually just find another way to get around it. I'm going to give all 3 of these away today. What I'm going to do is pick 3 random people from the comment section. So if you leave a comment, that is your entry. Preferably comments that help the community out though. If you do have experience with any of these tools, especially if you have more than one of them, what are your experiences with them? What do you use them for? Where do you find their strengths and weaknesses? That's stuff that really does help the community and helps us all kind of learn from each other. But either way, leave a comment, that's your entry. I will select 3 random numbers. Of those 3 random numbers, the tools that you get will also be random as well. I can't exactly pick and choose who gets what. So leave a comment, that's your entry. Let's dig into this. We have the Woodpeckers DelVe square, the 4.5-inch trim square from Milwaukee, and the Drillpro. See what the difference is. This is my 20-plus-year-old speed square, and I want to bring it out here just to give you guys a better idea visually of how much smaller these are compared to a regular speed square. On that note, I don't use the speed square in the shop, and that's because it's really just too crude of an instrument for the work that I want to do here in the shop. However, I do use it for outdoor work, and I recommend a tool like this for that stuff all the time. If you are going to use a speed square in the shop, which a lot of people do, I do recommend though that you get one of these newer styles like the Milwaukee. This is really just a smaller version of their 7-inch speed square. But you'll notice that our graduations and markings on here are much more narrow and refined than they are on here. And that's going to help you get closer to the level of accuracy and precision that you would want in projects that you make here in the shop as opposed to outside. Now, when we take a look at these, I want to go over packaging really quick because that has something to do with the difference between them. This is the padded mailer that I got this tool in. Something like this as I fumble around with it. Now, I got this in a box with a whole bunch of other tools that Banggood sent us. So if you were to buy it by itself, I would assume it came in sort of its own box. I don't know for sure, but for mailing purposes, I would assume it came in its own box. So there's that one. The Milwaukee came in sort of this, obviously not this one, but it sort of came in this thin cardboard thing that was hanging off of it like this, and it was hanging on the shelf. And so that's how this one showed up. And then with the Woodpeckers, like with a lot of their other stuff, this came into this box like this. And They wrapped it much better than I am now, but this would probably come in a box by itself as well if you were to buy it by itself. Again, I had it in a box with other things, so it sort of was just sitting in there. However, it does come with this 1-inch thick MDF case, which is CNC routed to fit this specific tool. And then this acrylic tab, which slides down and keeps it from falling out if you were to hang this up. It also came with instructions, and this was the only one that actually came with instructions, albeit just a piece of paper. It gives you all the things in here that this tool was designed for and how to do them. All right, so we'll move on to the fit and finish of these. First of all, you can see they're all three different sizes. Now, these two specifically, I tried to get as close as possible. Per some viewers' recommendations some time ago, I was told that you could buy the exact same thing as the Woodpecker stuff from Banggood.com at a fraction of the cost. So I tried to find tools from Banggood.com that were as close to the Woodpeckers visually as possible, and this was the only match I could find to this one, but you can see it is quite a bit different in size. Also, you'll notice this one is metric. A lot of the tools on Banggood's website are metric. They don't have a whole lot of tools with a option for imperial. So if you are a metric user, that's a big plus. If you're an imperial user, you might have some issues when you go there, but just be mindful of it. Now, we're not going to go into the difference of whether or not if one's more precise or accurate because of the unit of measure that they use. I just wanted to make a note of it so that you guys knew that there was going to be a difference here when we sort of go through these comparisons. As far as fit and finish and materials go, the Woodpeckers, obviously we have I believe they mill this out of a billet piece, so that would be sort of like taking this piece here and milling away all the parts I don't want, and whatever's left over is the tool I have, and I believe they mill this one the same way. And then we have the anodized red that Woodpeckers is basically known for. And then we have the white laser etched or laser engraved markings and graduations all the way around the sides of it. Now these are quite fine. I know that some people have an issue with how thin markings can be, but I will say the thinner these markings and the thinner your marking device, the more precise you can be with your layouts. The Milwaukee is extruded aluminum. And because this is extruded aluminum, these holes are actually punched out. You can tell if you look on this side, inside of here, you guys won't be able to probably see this on camera, but it is a very clean cut on the surface here. But when you flip it over, it is very rough on the rest of the material. So when you run your hand in here, you can definitely tell that it was punched out. It's just how they manufactured the tool. They do have the anodized red with the laser engraving. The graduations are a bit thicker than they are on the Woodpeckers, but they are just fine. What you will notice though is that we have a shiny finish on this side, and that's because it looks like this is milled after the fact, after this is anodized. So sort of twofold here. One, I assume once this oxidizes enough, it won't do this. But right now, this creates a really big glare because it almost becomes like a mirrored surface. So when I'm doing certain applications here, like just drawing these lines and I want to sneak back up to it, it can sort of cause optical illusions as to where this line really is because this reflects. So just something to be aware of. Also, we have very sharp edges here because of that whole machining process, like I said. So these edges along this edge and this edge are very sharp, not enough to cut you, but they are not relaxed or eased at all. And then on the stock here, we actually have rounded corners here, not just eased. And you might be able to tell the difference between the two if there isn't a gnarly glare on the camera. But you can see this one's rounded off and this one's eased. We're gonna go into that in a little bit and show you why that may or may not be something to look out for. You can see the bases are offset from the blade. There's a reason, and they're both for the same reason, but they both work just a little bit different. And in case you're wondering, that one is not offset at all. Now, the one that we got from Banggood.com, I don't have any manufacturing info on this at all. It's aluminum, obviously, has a very soft sort of textured feel to it. It doesn't seem to be the same type of anodizing as this. It could be a powder coat or something else. I really don't know. But everything is smooth. There is a few sharp corners. The corners are relatively sharp. And then some of these edges here, like on this part and on this part. Now I've used all of these over and over and over again, and it doesn't seem to grab or be an issue whatsoever, but they are there, and you could then just knock those down with a bit of sandpaper or something and smooth those out. And of course, they may break in over time anyways. Now, as far as thicknesses between them, obviously size-wise, that's going to be dictated on this length here because they need to be the triangle. However, when you look at them this way, you can see that the blade on the Woodpeckers is much thinner. It's actually milled to an 1/8 inch. Then we have the Drillpro, which is a little bit wider yet, and then you have a much, much thicker blade on the Milwaukee. Where this can possibly cause some issues is with parallax. So parallax, as I explained in the last video, is going to be the distance between the top of this tool itself and the top of the surface of your material. So if we have a mark right here at 1 inch, when I lay this tool up here and I look straight down, it's gonna look like it's at an angle from the camera, but I'm looking at this straight down. My pencil is acting as my line of sight here. The 1 inch mark and this mark are lined up perfectly. But as I go to about right here, the way I'm looking at it, that mark lines up with this mark, which gives me a whole 1/16 off. And then back. So what that means is that as my angle changes, my viewing angle changes this way, the higher this surface is from this one, the more of that parallax effect happens. That means that I may not hit my mark if I'm not in sort of the perfect viewing angle of looking straight down. The thinner you go, the less opportunity you have with that. That's why if you need the absolute most precision, I always recommend trying to use a very thin ruler like this one. This is about 0.8 of a millimeter, which is very thin, but still nice and sturdy to be able to use in a shop. So just one thing to think of when we go from the really thick tools like this. Now, on that note, you'll notice that all three of them have some way of a quick reference when it comes to drawing stuff out. With the Milwaukee, we have sort of this tooth-shaped design. And what this is meant to do is throw a pencil in here like this and be able to mark at 1 inch. These are in 1/4 inch increments on this side. They are also in 1/4 inch increments on this side, but they're scooted over by 1/8 of an inch. That means, let's see, how would I do this? This gets a little tricky, and there we go. Now, the reason I flipped it over is because with a design like this, if you have a triangle and you have a circle, when you pull this triangle this direction, it's going to make this circle, your lead, go in this way and self-center inside that V notch. And so in my opinion, or how I would use this tool, would actually to try and pull it as much as I can, as opposed to trying to push it. Pushing it doesn't guarantee that it's going to stay at that point, which means if it doesn't stay at that point, you can wiggle off of there. It took me a while to figure out how to really use this tool because I'm so used to this system where it just works. This tool does work, but you just have to take your time and sort of get used to the little teeth that it has in here and how to do it. However, they all are, the difference between them is an 1/8 inch, so you do have these quick reference marks at an 1/8 inch. Now, when we have both the Woodpeckers and the Drillpro, things work a little bit different. So with the Woodpeckers, you have to get a little bit of lead out here because it is an 1/8 inch thick. We have these marks at an 1/8 inch. And as we go, we have a positive registration at an 1/8 inch, or whatever it is that we're trying to go to. So that goes the whole way down. Now, one thing I noticed with this setup in particular is that sometimes it can be easy to break your lead. Also, with a system like this or with this, you also have to have a mechanical pencil because it's going to be very difficult to get a regular style pencil in those holes. You can't sharpen the lead up narrow enough to get it in here. So that is sort of a plus or a minus to you maybe. But with this one, I'm still going to be able to get my pencil in that hole and get an accurate reading, and this pencil is quite dull on top of it. However, I of course wouldn't be able to get it inside of that hole whatsoever. And because you have to pull the lead out so far, you can run the risk of breaking that lead off in that hole. So again, just something to be mindful of. When we move to the Drillpro, things get a little bit different. Now, keep in mind that this is metric. And how this works, hopefully you can see here, I forgot to mention we have no backfill on our lines here. So while we do have the red anodized, we don't have any backfilled marking. So this does make it a little bit harder to see. That reminded me, because I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see these markings. But what I have here is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. These are all odd numbers. And when I flip it over, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. These are all even numbers. So what we do is we use the exact same hole, but we've offset the base. So we have this base, which is this wide. And we have this side of the base, which is just a tad bit narrower. So when we switch the side of the base that we're on, it scoots this over one way or another, and therefore moving our holes. So if we get, let's use a 0.7 so we can try and see here what the difference is. I'm just going to pick some random numbers here. And as I go, these in theory should be approximately 2 millimeters apart. And then when I flip it over, we should be getting in between those. If I can pay attention to which one that I'm actually trying to aim for here. So as you can see, these should all be, I'm hoping, 1 millimeter apart. Now I don't have anything accurate enough to measure metric with to tell you for sure that those are all exactly 1 millimeter apart, but you see the idea. To use this, you would have to flip it over in order to get a certain number that you're trying to achieve, if that makes any sense whatsoever. As far as being accurate goes, we're just going to say this. I am going to, first of all, I've already checked all of these with a marking knife and they all check out perfect. But the way that I'm just going to show you guys this, and actually we're going to use a little bit thicker lead here. If I draw a line, they are all either they're all off or they're all accurate, one or the other, but you can hopefully see that all these lines are parallel with each other, and that's what we want. We can do the same thing with the 45 reference. And you can hopefully see that these are all parallel with each other. That means that, again, they're either all off or they're all on. However you want to look at it, take it for what it's worth. I'm not going to do any scientific measuring to see which one is within the most specific tolerances or not. They all work as intended as far as a true 90 and a true 45 goes. I'm satisfied with those results. Now, when we look at special features of these things, aside from these little predetermined marking gauges here, I don't see any special features on the Drillpro. Again, this blade is centered to the stock, so I don't see any special features as far as that goes. There is a circle cutout here. I believe, in my personal opinion, that that circle cutout is just to kind of make it look more like the Woodpeckers, because I cannot find that it is a specific measurement for anything standard or useful. Now, that being said, it is a metric version, and this may be intended for a different industry or something like that. I kind of don't think so, but it could be something. It's there and I don't know why. This one is actually here for a reason, which I'll show you here in just a second. One thing I did want to say, since we're talking about special features, this one is a little bit unique though. The whole time that I've ever used a tool like this, and we'll flip them over this way, including going back to my speed square, I'm used to having a 90 here. I'm used to having sort of a 0 here, and then we go 5, 10, 15, 20. We go all the way up to 90 degrees. With the Milwaukee, we start at 0, we go up to 90 degrees. With the Woodpeckers, we start at 0, we go to 90 degrees. However, with the Drillpro, we start at 90 this way and go to 0, even though this is at 90 degrees. Now, in some senses, this kind of makes sense, because that means that if I mark this at 90 degrees, well, that's 90 degrees here. That means that if I was to go here, that would be 80 degrees. But I'm not used to that way. In my mind, this is backwards, and it kind of threw me for a loop when I first got it because I didn't understand it. I can see as to how that might come in handy, and in other countries or other industries, maybe that's how you use a square like this. I have just never seen it be used like this. So just keep in mind, if you are going to get this, especially if you're here in the States where you're used to a system that runs from 0 to 90, this is going to be absolutely backwards. I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to throw that out there, because that is a big difference. With the Milwaukee, as far as special features go, obviously we have this cut out here for our graduations. I do not know if this is a special feature or not. I have a feeling that it's very similar to the Woodpeckers, where this just gives us another opportunity to draw a measurement from. If you start from 0 here and go over, you have 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, so on and so forth. So I'm assuming that's just another way for us to make a measurement. But if you know if that is a specific thing, please do let us know in the comments. Other than that, the only special features that I know that this has is the base. The base is offset 1/4 inch here and 3/8 of an inch here. And again, we're going to touch on that in just a second, because this has the same feature and I want to note the differences between them. As far as the Woodpeckers goes, Woodpeckers has specifically machined this an 1/8 inch thick at the blade. It is 1/4 inch thick on the stock. It is 3/4 of an inch wide on the stock. These portions right here are exactly 1/2 inch, and that might be it. We do have this scale here. The reasons that they mill it that way is for quick reference. So if I wanted to set something, say a cutter height at exactly 1/4 inch, I could pull this out of my pocket and know that that's exactly 1/4 inch tall, or know that this is exactly a 3/4 of an inch tall. So that's why they mill it that way. There is specific reasons. This hole right here is for a reason. Remember, I brought that up with the Drillpro. If I was to take this and lay it on here, this hole is going to be 3/8 of an inch from inside of here. Now, we work commonly with 3/4 inch material here in the States, and that hole is perfectly centered there. The reason is because I can use a self-centering drill bit to create a hole in the very center of my material. Now, speaking of the center of my material, we're going to go ahead and look at the offset base. Again, this one has it, and this one has it. What this is for laying out or dividing on material. And I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, so we're just going to have to hope. Right now I have it on the 1/4 inch side, and if I do this, I can take this piece of 3/4 inch material and very quickly and easily separate it into thirds just like that. This would be good, say, for tenon cheeks. On the other side, I can do shoulders with the 3/8 inch side. Very quickly, very easily, and now I have this already laid out. Now, one thing about the, let's see, this one could do it too, now that I think about it, but what I can do here now is transfer that measurement to the side very easily, because I can see the corner. So that's similar to a saddle square, where we can get the same measurement both here and here and wrap it down the side. Both of these are going to be able to do the same thing, just like so. Now, this one's going to be a little bit difficult in certain situations because there's a gap in here. That gap is to offset for the pencil for the 1st millimeter hole. And so you're not going to be able to use that the same way on either one. No, you could use it on this one, it looks like. Okay, so you could use it on this side. You wouldn't be able to use it on this side. So just something to keep mindful. Now, at the same time, what we can do is we can use this to separate and split a 3/4 inch stock down the middle. Now it's just in the middle. And if you'll notice, I have this little skip here. That's the little dot that we just made with our self-centering drill bit. When we put our 3/8 inch indicator on here. So again, that is actually what that hole is made for. How useful it is to you, well, I don't know. Now, as far as the difference between these two, so this took me a while to figure out. For the longest time, I was trying the both of them, and I was splitting stock and I was dividing it in thirds using these scales. However, I was getting different results, and it finally dawned on me the difference is because this has rounded corners and this has eased corners. If you're using especially a thinner lead, your lead can go underneath this material right here. And because of that, we can actually get a little bit lower underneath there. So, typically, it doesn't matter. You guys might be able to see that that line showed up in the same place. However, when I first picked this up, I was getting different readings from both of them, even though they're milled the exact same. So just something to be mindful of. The thinner the lead, the more chance you have for this to wrap underneath here when you're using it. So hopefully all that made sense. So that is the DelVe square, the Milwaukee trim square, and the one from Banggood.com made by Drillpro. I know these videos get long, and I really do sort of apologize for the length. It's really hard to show you guys this stuff in detail, and I can't hand it to you and have you visually inspect it and tell the differences yourself. I know there's gonna be some people that complain that these videos take too long, and those people really don't care, I suppose, how one works compared to the other, but then they shouldn't click on a video like this if that's the case, in my opinion. For those of you that actually suffer through these things, I really do appreciate it. There's so many little things, and it can make it really difficult to get all the information out to you guys. So that is it. Again, leave a comment, and that is your entry to win. We're going to pick 3 random winners, and then you guys are going to have these shipped out to you. I will clean them up before I send them out. No worries. I think that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, as always, and we'll see you in the next video.